Hello, and welcome to my first podcast on YouTube. My name is Exclamation Boy, and yes, I know I'm female. However, that is my handle on Twitter. You will find in the information below not only links to the stories that I'm going to cover, you will also find the link to my Twitter if you wish to join me there. Again, thank you for joining me today. I'm going to cover a few things today that may be a bit touchy, and that's fine. I do want to say at the beginning of this, I am most certainly protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, the freedom of press and the freedom of speech. I also want to know, I believe in your due process of freedom of speech. The fact of the matter is everyone should have a right to express their viewpoints and their beliefs without fear or frustration that they're going to be belittled, berated, or just basically told that they're wrong, because your wrong may not be my wrong, and my wrong may not necessarily be your wrong. So please remember this while you're making comments, if you choose to do so. And again, I will not respond to negative comments. So that being said, you will find that what I do is I do the research and I find stories to help you find out where you can find these stories, what they concern, and where you can research them a little further. I think it's important that you should do your own research and not just trust my judgment. However, I know that sometimes I'll just read a story myself and I'll say, okay, well, then. Also, I will give credit to all the people who have written these stories, so make sure that you understand that, and you will find a link below so that you can contact that story on your own on the internet. So, to begin with, St. Patrick's Day is coming up, and we have a visitor from Ireland who is going to be coming and talking to Exclamation Boy, as I call him. See, my Twitter handle didn't come necessarily for me. It came for the gentleman who is now in charge of the United States, or so he thinks, because he tends to use exclamation points a little more than he should. I will begin by saying that when I was taught grammar, an exclamation point was either excitement or extreme frustration, and it's the only time that you were supposed to use it. However, our fearless leader who got voted in, regardless whether it was due to Russia or his own constituents in the voters poll, uses an exclamation point a little too much. So it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, and unless you listen to me on the podcast, you're not going to know that. So I just wanted to explain the handle behind the Twitter. I am Irish. My family comes from Northern Ireland. And so the fact that St. Patrick's Day is coming up and that we are having an Irish leader, regardless whether he's from the south or the north, doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is he's meeting with the current commander-in-chief and bringing a bowl of shamrocks as an act of good faith, which has happened for a very long time, which I will get into. And I kind of want to go through the history of Ireland, the Irish immigrants, where they stand, how they were placed with many people who were technically lower. And no, I know you may not think this is politically correct, but African Americans were placed with the Irish when this country started, and we have about 50,000 people currently who are undocumented, so unfortunately they are under the same rules of deportation, or could be, with this new situation with the person in office today. I will not recognize him. You must understand, names give people power. I refuse to give him any more power than he already thinks that he has. And for those around the world and those listening here in America, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. So first off, I want to share about the fact that there is going to be a St. Patrick's Day rally against Trump in New York on Friday. And I think that this is very important because there's an Irish senator who's going to be there who his speech went viral. And boy, he held back nothing. This is one thing you should understand or need to know about people from Ireland. We tell it as it is. If you don't like it, that's not our problem. Go out and we'll still have a drink with you, but we don't have to agree with you. So they're having a St. Patrick's Day protest in New York City because of what the current situation in the Oval Office is, and the policies and what's at stake. But it's not even just what's at stake for Ireland or for anybody from Mexico or the people who are going to come and visit us from other countries that are quote unquote terrorist. And let's call it what it is. It's a Muslim ban. I'm going to be very honest. It's a Muslim ban. We've seen this through time and time and time again of one nationality being discriminated against from the time that America has actually pretty much been a country. And we need to remember this, that there are people who, honestly, unless you were born in America as a Native American, you're technically not an American. Everybody's an immigrant. So everybody came from somewhere else, except for the people who were actually born on this land before the Mayflower arrived. So, that being said, we're going to get back to this Irish stand. Now, I'm going to give you two different things. One is from the Huffington Post, and one is from the actual Irish stand location. They are asking for $15 to come to this. However, they are donating all of that money to the ACLU, which is a very important organization in the United States for equal rights, not only for African Americans, but for Muslims and Irish and Polish, Germany, anyone who comes from another country and is facing problems with their civil liberties, their basic ability to survive in the United States, which honestly, thousands of people come to, and they flock to this country in order to be a part of this country because of what this country is based on, besides, of course, the blood, sweat, and tears. It's based on some sense of freedom, and these freedoms are being taken. And the ACLU is of course, one of the community projects, or it's one of the organizations in America who actually helps people out that don't know where to turn. So, and they're doing a lot of work, especially with this Muslim ban coming up soon, and with people being thrown out of this country who have, well, to be honest, have worked the backbone of the country and dug the ditches and gotten your fruits and vegetables and cleaned people's toilets and fought, and some of their families have died to get here for a better future from where they came from. And I'm not just talking about people from Mexico. I'm talking about people from all over the world. That's what America was built on. So please, if you're in New York City, do your best to make it to this Irish stand. It is definitely going to be having a lot of guests that I dare not try to pronounce some of the names. Even though I'm Irish, I do not speak Gaelic, so I definitely don't want to disrespect them by saying their names incorrectly. But you have a lot of people. You have actors and comedians and authors and faith leaders, spiritualists, artists, activists. And one of the activists that's going to be there is Sean King. And so if you think that it's just going to be Irish people, it's not. Sean King is helped out for the movement of Black Lives, and a lot of people don't understand the similarities between African Americans and Irish when this country was built. They both were looked upon as second-class citizens. And does that sound familiar? And it's important to have it on St. Patrick's Day because of the fact that this deals with freedom and having a voice and celebrating. Everybody in America has generally at least one part of every nationality in them. Even the people who say that they're of a pure nation, that's not necessarily true. So bloodlines have been mixed, and so the largest thing is like on St. Patrick's Day, everybody thinks that they're Irish, and that's great. You want to go out and you want to celebrate and you want to drink and all this, but you also have to look at what the people from Ireland have been through. So I'm going to go through that, but I definitely want you to be able, if you are in New York City, at least stop by and show your support, because if you're going to drink with us and have your Guinness, go ahead and support the civil rights that have been fought for and people have died for and given their blood. And it could very well happen again. Freedom is not free. And this is something that you must understand. Freedom is not free. Even though you may not be at war, there are soldiers at war. And so, and there's people who are constantly fighting for this right, and they're dying. And this is not, this is not unusual in America. America was built on blood. So if people want to say it wasn't, that's, let's go back to the Mayflower and the Pilgrims and what happened there and the Boston Tea Party. So we'll go from there and move forward. This is not only the first St. Patrick's Day since the Commander-in-Chief has been voted in falsely, but it's also this first St. Patrick's Day where the UK decided to leave the EU, known as Brexit. So there's some pretty major things going on, and if you think that Brexit's not going to affect America, it is. A lot of people don't realize this. It will, but we'll get into that later. So we have, they're doing this to talk to you about what happened and to inspire you to be able to have a voice. It is being done at the Riverside Church, and this is where Martin Luther King had his historical speech against the Vietnam War about 50 years earlier. And remember, people supported the Vietnam War too until they stopped supporting it because soldiers were coming home in body bags. So, and a lot of people lost their lives there as well. And at this moment, I want to say thank you to the vets. Please don't think that we don't forget you. I myself am a military daughter. I've been a military wife, and I know the sacrifices that are made. And so for you warriors out there who are fighting and digging the ditches and doing your best to protect our freedoms, I want to thank you. So, St. Patrick's Day is politically important for U.S. and Irish relations. There's a lot of businesses that are in Ireland, and there's, like I said, about 50,000 people who are here in America as, well, undocumented Irish, and they fought to get here. And yeah, that doesn't necessarily make it correct. They do need to get their citizenship, no doubt, or a work visa. That is definitely true. But while we're discussing that, please remember, first off, your family was probably immigrants. Second off, sometimes getting that citizenship is not as easy as you think. And third, remember, the people who are here as immigrants and maybe they're undocumented, first off, they're trying to become documented. Second off, they're actually doing the jobs that no one else wants to do. And I know this because I grew up in a heavily migrated location where people got their green cards for the summer to work, and they would come to America and they would work for a higher paycheck, and then they would go home to share with their family. And I've not only done that with Mexican people from Mexico, but I've also done it with people from Russia. So I know what they do to get here. I know the struggles that they have to get here just to be able to support their family back home. So rethink your focus. But most important, remember, unless you are Native American, you probably are an immigrant yourself, regardless whether it's this generation or previous generations. So, this is a really big deal. So support them, and yeah, they're going to say some things you don't want to hear. Just remember, the Irish like to drink and they like to be honest. So, that being said, you will catch the Huffington Post link below and on the podcast if you want to visit and out more. And then I will also have the Irish Stand link as well. They do have tickets in advance. They are taking donations. This is something that you're going to be able to participate in if it's something that you truly believe in and you want to help. I'm not sure if you can pay when you get there, but if you're going to do it prior and you want to pay with your Visa and Discovery or American Express or MasterCard, it's going to cost you a total of $17.59. It's at the Riverside Church in the city of New York City, of course. March 17th from 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. And there's probably going to be some really good times there. Just to let you know, I am not being paid by Irish Stand to let you know about this. This is something that I feel strongly about and I wanted to share. So I will repeat that information at the end. You'll also find the link below. So getting into some of the Irish history. And a lot of people don't know the Irish history, which is kind of sad because probably about 75% of America is actually Irish, or at least, an eighth. Kind of like an eighth of Native Americans. So, during the 19th century, the Irish and the blacks were pushed into competition. Now, this is information that's coming from teachers in classroom materials at www.loc.gov. So, www.loc.gov. But you're going to have the link. Both were really treated unfairly, and they were pitted against each other. And since, here's the funny thing. Slaves were actually seen in the South as more valuable. They were property to be able to work the fields. And so they were not allowed to participate in hazardous and life-threatening work. So therefore, the dangerous jobs were given to the Irish. And there were thousands amongst thousands of lives lost because of this while the Irish built the canals and the railroad system. And that doesn't mean that there were not African Americans there. Don't get that twisted. The reality is Irish were seen as less than. And, if you're African American, please do your history check before you criticize me for saying that I'm incorrect. I've done my history. I have the links. And again, I won't respond. I do not believe in responding to negative. It only begets more negativity. So, it's a situation where in 1863, There was an act that made all white men between the ages of 20 and 45 eligible for the draft by the Union Army, whereas free black men, not slaves, could volunteer. So, and that comes through the Emancipation Proclamation. Irish were forced to fight. White men, Caucasians, were forced to fight. And, you could pay to have a doctor get you out of it, but the Irish were generally paid much less in their wages, and as we get into it, you're going to find out that they actually had to pay to work. So, that being said, if you go to this link below, you're going to read more about the Irish and immigration. You're going to find a lot of stuff on there, not just about the Irish. There's a lot of different interesting things. I suggest you go and look. This is stuff they don't teach you in history books, by the way. So, another funny thing is, America used to hate Catholics, believe it or not. And they felt that Catholics were less civilized. And, of course, less white. So you're going to find this on political.com. You'll find this link down below. And they really felt that the Irish Catholic immigrants were drunks and barbarians, and they were not fit for citizenships. And in New York City and Boston and a few other places said no Irish need apply. So they couldn't even get a job to become citizens, to prove their worth. You have to understand, they were running from Ireland for many reasons. And they were definitely discriminated against. So you may think that, okay, well, you got a lot of Irish in your fire and your police department. The reality is you need to look into your history and understand why that might be. So, go out and support. So, back to where we were as far as the situation of people coming from Ireland and being seen as less than. You can read more about it. I don't want to get overboard because of the fact that I do have a couple other things I wanted to talk about, and I didn't really want to spend this much time on the Irish situation, even though it does actually mean a great deal to me. As you will see, you'll have the links below to be able to connect yourself political from Irish immigration at current.com. Go over the history, take a look, see that it has not just been one or other situations being discriminated against, or one or another race. It has actually been quite a few, and the Irish were definitely there, even though they are most certainly prominent in some of your areas of being in the House and the Senate and government and police and fire and owning companies today. There's been a long walk to get there. So this is about the gentleman coming from Ireland to talk to the president and bring peace. And one of the first stories that I want to is actually him fighting for the words that he has said in the past from the Belfast Telegraph. The reality is he should not have to for his freedom of speech, what he felt, he believed. There are other issues that need to be discussed by Mr. Kenny and by the current leader in charge. It's going to be about how this immigration ban, and are the Irish safe who are undocumented here? Remember, Trump is not from here. He has made it very clear he's Scotland. That's where his heritage comes from, is Scotland. If you don't believe me, go search it. Just put in Trump and Scotland, and he is bloodline from another country, and he is not here, honestly. He's like a second generation. So, and his wife is not from America either. Let's not. So there's a reason for, there to be an apology to President Trump. Oh Lord, I did say it. About using racist language. It's true, he did. And exclamation boy never apologizes for anything he says or does. Never. And if you read The Art of the Deal, you'll find out this is one of the things that he clarifies. He never backs down, and he never. So why should anybody apologize to him when he has yet to apologize to the rest of the people who he's lied to? So I support Mr. Kenny and what he's doing. He should not have to apologize in any way, shape, or form. You'll find the story on the Bell. There's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to throw at you. There's a couple other articles you probably should read. One is at the A.com, and it is the Irish leader White House, and he's visiting the White House. Obviously, there's some questions that are going to happen. This is why Irish Stand is doing what they're doing. They have to question what is going to happen to them. And not only that, we have companies over in Ireland as well that are there. And regardless how you feel about the fact of people buying American, working in America, employ a lot of other people in other parts of the world. And this is... You can't just have trade in America. People forget this. You can't just trade in America, and you can't get everything in America. So therefore, you do need to work with other people from other countries. You can't just think you're the only one. It's not going to work. So you're going to find that link at AJ. And then, of course, I've got 2 more links. I try to give you at least 4 links to each story that I'm telling you about. Another one is from the Irish Times, and Mr. Kelly, he has to speak with the commander-in-chief currently about the situations. They're very serious about this. They are very nervous, and no, Ireland is not very happy from what I understand. But where are they going to be placed? Are they safe? Do they have jobs? Is there going to be trade? Is there going to be business? Do they need to protect themselves? This is not the first time that Ireland has been in, I guess you could say, the gallows and trying to figure out where they stand. Or they're not named Fighting Irish for no reason. So, and of course the last one here for right now is with Politico. It's very clear. Is Trump ready for Irish straight talk? Said, we are not shy people. We are going to tell you exactly how we feel, what we think, and we'll share a drink with you. We'll have a dinner table with you, but you're going to hear our nuts because exclamation boy likes to get across too. The problem there is that he doesn't like to respect other people's points, and that's not fair. That's not a democracy. That's not a conversation. That is a dictatorship, and that cannot be allowed. That is not what America was based on, and well, at least that's not what we would like to think it's based on. So that being said, we're going to move on to our second item this evening. Like I said, I don't really want to tie you down with the Irish, and I dig board. I'm sorry. But we're going forward. We're going to talk about Mr. Exclamation Boy's taxes. Now, if you're his campaign, he stated that if he was elected president, he would raise his taxes. Well, that hasn't happened. And it's not going to. So if you are thinking to, I am so sorry to tell you, he's not going to release taxes. He's going to release the taxes visually to the public. The reality is, they have handed his taxes off and said, okay, here they are. So, this is a article that the New York Times did, and I rarely will defend exclamation boy. However, in this case, I will. He legally got away with paying less taxes by hiring a CPA who knew the tax laws. And if you don't know the tax laws in America, well, you're not going to be able to get as many breaks as some of the other people who can hire a CPA who actually understand the tax laws, who have to understand the tax laws, and that know the tax laws every year and what loopholes you could take. So, the New York Times released something about his legally dubious method of avoiding to pay taxes. This is true, and we saw this with what Rachel Maddow dropped last night, that a Pulitzer Prize writer gave to her, that he was handed this information. And do I believe that it was handed by Trump? Absolutely. I think that he did it as a distraction from the Russian situation. I will get into that later this week. However, I think he did it as a distraction. If you ever notice, whenever he's under the heat or his cabinet's under the heat, he will throw out a distraction and make all of the news companies and all of the people all over the world who are involved in even paying attention to the situation here in the United States, he'll throw something out there to cause confusion. Well, if you know anything about Charlie Wilson's war, Charlie Wilson stated that, as long as you've got sex and drugs and chaos out there, basically, and I'm not quoting him verbatim, so please don't think that, but as long as you have sex and drugs, you can hide anything behind that. So this is not sex and drugs, but it most certainly is about taxes, and something that was promised that has not happened. It's not going to happen. Kellyanne Conway has stated very clearly it's not going to happen. He's refused to give it. He doesn't think that anybody except for the media wants that. No, this is not true. And the reason why we want these this tax information, who was Trump in bed with as far as a businessman? Because that is going to tell you exactly who he's in bed with as far as paying taxes. Who does he owe? Who is he in bed with as a businessman? Who's he taking payment from? If you go back through some of my tweets, and maybe I'll retweet it, Mr. Exclamations Boy Jr. said that Russia paid a great percentage of Trump Industries, shall we say. So how can he say he's never had any activities with Russia when they're funding a lot of his businesses? When he went over and had the Miss Universe over in Russia, how did he not meet Putin? For people who do not remember, and I do, Russia's changed its name 3 times since I've been alive. And the USSR was not happy with us during the Cold War. They're still not happy with us. And if people think that anything happens in Russia without the Russians knowing, and the people who are in leadership, such as Putin, need to go work with some people from Russia. That's all I have to say on that. You really need to go and work with some people from Russia and learn about their culture, because they're not going to tell you this information in books either. So you'll find the link about the fact that Exclamation Boy did get away legally with paying the taxes. However, it was definitely double dipping. So, and I'm going to cover a couple more things here. However, I'm going to move on to the next thing because I don't want to keep you too long. And I'd like to keep your attention. I think it's important. One of the things that CNBC brought up was that it was curious about Donald Trump's tax leak. And this is true. The reality is if you look at the tax leak, it says clients copy. So this is either his accountant leaking this or somebody within his family. It states very clearly it is a client copy. And the gentleman who leaked the story, the gentleman who got the paperwork, the journalist who got the writer, is a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative reporter. And not only that, but if you look at the interview with Miss Maddow, he's very clear about the fact that Trump has given him information prior. So go check that out. Go check that link out. You know, and I know that exclamation boy thinks that everything except for Fox News is fake news. And the reality is if you think about what Fox News is known for, Fox News is known for The Simpsons, Family Guy, American Dad, Bob's Burgers. Let's look at some of the stuff that Fox News is actually known for. It is not known for news. As a matter of fact, long-standing joke with Fox News is it's faux news, F-O-U-X, meaning fake. They can't even go out and actually research stuff in general. And I'm not saying that they don't right now, and maybe they do. However, their exclamation boys' favorite little news media and everybody else is fake news. Think about that. How can NPR, PBS, BBC, Huffington Post, New York Times, Washington Post, all of this that he's saying is fake news, how can they all be fake news? That is not even fathomable. Especially when they're quoting him, when they're printing things that he said, when they have proof of the information that they are backing up. And the fact, this is something else. Journalists are allowed to have moles. This is how Watergate happened. This is how people found out about President Nixon and the Watergate scandal. That person didn't come out and give their name. They were a mole. And they met in back alleys. And they met in dark corners. And they put their life at risk. And so for exclamation boy and his cabinet to say that these people need to come forward, whistleblowers do not need to come forward because their lives are at stake when they decide to be strong enough and come out and tell the truth. So that being said, CBS went and spoke to some accountants. And so therefore, I did some research on this, and they're trying to tell you exactly kind of the situation and the loopholes that were possible. And the reality is we're not going to get everything from the little bit that we got, the 2 little pages that we got. That's not enough to know exactly Trump's dealings in other countries and where his money's going, who does he owe. But it does give you an idea of how shisty he can be, how much money he's taking off, and, how he's cheating the system. So the one thing that I found that I thought was really interesting is this alternative minimum tax it was originally geared for the wealthy, and now it's hitting the upper middle class. And Mr. Exclamation Boy wants to get rid of this tax. Ironically, it's because of the fact that if he gets rid of this tax, he's going to be paying less in taxes. So explain to me, in a logical sense, why someone who gets $36 million should pay less in taxes than someone who's making under $30,000. If you don't believe me, go check it out. I'm going to give you the links. Go check out and see what I'm telling you is true. How does that sound fair? He paid 24%. Had he been able to not pay with the AMT, he would have paid 3 to 4% on his taxes. And he could have written off most of that. And not only that, because of the situation, he may not have to pay taxes for 18 years. Yes, he did it legally. Absolutely. The tax code has to be rewritten so it's fair. But if you think that him going ahead and saying that he's paying too much in taxes or that he shouldn't pay these taxes, how much money do you need? How many small nations, small towns, people who are homeless or without food, how many of them could you pay with $36.6 million? That's something that none of us will ever see. And that's what he paid on taxes. That isn't even including what he made. He made $152.7 million. And I'm not discrediting the man for making money. Good for him. That's super and that's great. And if you can do it, fantastic. But don't cry poor. And don't think that you should pay less than someone who's barely making it, doesn't own a house, doesn't own a car, is struggling to get by, has to feed their family, is living on food stamps. And they're paying more in taxes than a man who is making millions of dollars. Not acceptable. Not okay. So, that's going to be on cbsnews.com. And really think about that. Think about, what do you make? And what you pay in taxes is kind of not fair. So the other thing is he's only looking out for the people who grease his palms. Think about it. Who is he protecting? He's not protecting the lower income people who he said he would protect. He's not protecting anybody in America except for him and his Wall Street buddies who own property, who are making these millions. That's all he's protecting. He's not protecting anybody else. I guarantee you he's not going to give you a loan. So, as a matter of fact, he's kicked a lot of people out of his homes. So, he is very upset about NBC for revealing his tax forms. You're going to find this on The Hill. This is a Washington, D.C. paper, The Hill. So, this is, this is coming from Washington, D.C. And then you also have LA Times reporting on this. Now in LA Times, think about it. You have Hollywood there. It's one of the richest states in America as far as people who are living there. And, they're reporting on it too. And they're all saying the same thing. So we're going to move on. And I found some things concerning the alternative minimum tax. I give you the IRS site, and unless you're a CPA, you're probably not going to understand it, so I had to go search other places. But the link will be there for the IRS. Here we have thenation.com. And here's where it states that without the AMT, which Donald Trump is trying to get rid of, he would have only paid 3%. 3%. Not 24. 3%. And this is thenation.com. This is in their finance area. So go read that. Educate yourself. Learn about this. Think about why he wants to get rid of this alternative minimum tax. Because he doesn't want to pay taxes. He doesn't feel that he needs to. I'm a New Yorker, and I'm going to he looks down the noses of people, and he uses people. And I've seen this. I've seen what he's done to contractors and things, and people who've worked for him. I've seen it firsthand. So, no. Do I like this man? Absolutely not. Do I want to expose him? Absolutely. Will I give him credit where credit is due? Sure will. Just because I don't like him doesn't mean I shouldn't tell the truth. And these are facts. These are not things that I feel or I sense. These are actual facts that I've researched, that I am aware of, that I have seen with my own two eyes, and that I know to be true. So, another place that I found for explaining what the alternative minimum tax is, because it is very, very confusing, was at bustle.com. And it explains as well about the alternative minimum tax. And it's very, very good. So go and take a look because it's very confusing. Tax codes are extremely confusing. So my last site on this came from NPR, National Public Radio. They are not fake news. They are one of the news channels that actually go back and research and find their sources, and they cite their sources. Goes into this tax that he wishes to abolish. And he wants to get rid of it. So I want you to sit down, and I want you to take a moment and really digest why exclamation boy would want to get rid of this tax after you read all the other facts. And really think about how this is going to affect you. Because maybe you are a middle class income person and you're not a real estate mogul. You don't have business write-offs, or maybe you do, but they're not as big as some of the CEOs that have multi-billion-dollar companies for all these tax write-offs. And you pay 25% compared to a man who is going to pay 3 to 4% on something that he makes 10 times more than you do in your company. Is this fair? This is not fair. Think about it. Why should he pay less on his taxes? Why should the people who are in his company, who are in his society bracket? That man has never been poor. He took $1 million loan from his father to get started in New York City. So he's never been poor. He doesn't know what it is to live on the streets. He doesn't know what it is to be without a silver spoon. And he most definitely does not know what it is to dig ditches. And you're going to let this man go ahead and abolish these taxes that you're going to pay more and make less. You're paying for his salary, which we're going to get into as well at a later date, not right now. So, moving on, I see we're almost to an hour. We're going to talk about something called the freedom of speech. Now, I am a journalist. I do actually cover real life stories here in America. Stories that have been in courts and whatnot. And I love my freedom of speech because it protects me. Please understand, I love it because it protects me so that I can speak the truth, so that I can expose it, so that people can see things. And, you know, the reality is you may not agree with what I say, and I may not agree with what you say. However, we have the right to say it under the First Amendment. And it's not just that. I will defend your right to say what you wish. I may not like it. I may not like your point of view. I may think that you're a crackpot and I'll just walk away. I'm not going to start a fight. But the reality is I will defend your right to say it because you are protected with freedom of speech and you have a right to your opinion. Just as I have a right to my opinion, just as exclamation point has a right to his opinion, and Alex Jones and Michael Moore and all those people who make you irate, we all have the right to our opinion. It does not mean that you have to agree. You can turn me off. You can walk away. You don't have to listen to me. just like I don't have to listen to you. So that being said, Mr. Exclamation Boy decided that he would go after Snoop Dogg. Now, you don't have to like Snoop Dogg. That's perfectly fine. But he went after him on Twitter. And he talked about the fact after his taxes were returned, and I'm quoting from Twitter, by the way, it's up here. So you're going to find this information at the NewYorkTimes.com. I'm going to give you that link. Can you imagine what the outcry would be if, at Snoop Dogg, failing career and all, had aimed and fired a gun at President Obama? Jail time. First off, it's a video. He and the person who is in the video, regardless of who he resembles, is not exclamation point boy. It's not Mr. Exclamation Point Boy. So second off, and it's a remix, and it's a song called Lavender, and it was by the band of Bad Bad Not Good. So the reality is first off, it's a toy pistol. Second off, Snoop Dogg was giving his point of view of the current situation here in America. This man is allowed to do this, just like Ice Cube, Tupac, Eminem, Beyonce, Adele, any other musician, anybody who is an artist has a right to the First Amendment and the protection of the First Amendment, whether you agree or not. And that also includes people who I'm not endorsing, but the KKK and the Black Panthers and anybody who is an extremist. They have these rights in America for a reason. It's called the First Amendment. So, you know, this was a fictitious thing. This was not real. So, and he was explaining what was going on and how frustrated he is. And one thing that you will find for history, and if you go back to Hitler, the best way to stop a nation from understanding what the truth is take away their artist. Your artists always determine and they show what is going on in the signs of the times. And we have seen this time and time and time again with artists and wars and what they depict. And Snoop Dogg, whether you like it or not, is an artist. And he is protected under that First Amendment. Just as Exclamation Boy is, and Kellyanne Conway, and the rest of them. They're all protected under that First Amendment. So you're going to see that at the NewYorkTimes.com. You can also go to his Twitter and find it there. That's your choice. But Snoop Dogg does not deserve jail time, and I'm going to tell you why. Back on August 9th of 2016, if you remember, and I've got 4 lovely examples of this, Mr. Exclamation Boy suggested that the Second Amendment people could act against Miss Clinton at the time during the election process, during the time that both of them were running for president. So wasn't he doing the same thing as Snoop Dogg? And how ironic that all these papers have this information. All of these news outlets have this information. You can look it up yourself. He said that the Second Amendment people could act out against Hillary Clinton. This was August 9th of 2016. Look it up if you don't believe me. NewYorkTimes.com. I've got CNN.com. It's even on YouTube. I mean, they've got the video. This is what he said. And somebody actually did try to go out and do this. And then back when Palin was running as vice president, she also suggested the same thing. Yet when somebody who was in the Senate was actually shot because some person took it seriously, nobody really threw a fit about that. So why is it that one person can say one thing under the freedom of the press and the freedom of speech, yet another person cannot? He should not be able to get away with this, and he should be accountable. So CNN.com also has it. You have Huffington Post, who has it. You have The Hill, who has it. You have all of these people who actually have about suggesting, same thing as the video, suggesting. Didn't do it, suggested it. So, you're going to get the .com, you're going to get Time Magazine. And with Time Magazine, I actually gave you the whole entire speech so you could read it. If you throw in Second Amendment, SECOND, amendment in your find, it's going to pop up for you. And you're going to see, he said exactly what I just said. Then he encouraged people who believe in Second Amendment rights to stop Clinton. It's the same idea as what Snoop Dogg did. He expressed his opinion. And he also made a big deal about the fact that the NPR was supporting him. So, that was in August of last year when he was running against Clinton. Then we're going to move on to one more thing, and I'm going to let you go. If you stayed this long with me, great, thank you. Please pass it on if you like it. If you don't, and you need to put me in chunks, hey, I get it. We might even break this down to 3 different podcasts for you to listen to, because I know they're a little long. So, you're going to find the whole entire transcript on time.com. I'm giving you the link. And so, something else Mr. Exclamation Point Boy said that really bothers me, and it should bother you too, because he stated January 24th, 2016, I could shoot somebody and I would not lose voters. He stated he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and he would not lose voters because his people were so loyal. How can you say that and then criticize Snoop Dogg? It's not okay. So that's going to be at CNN.com. You'll see. All of this is backed up, and they have proof that he said this. That's why I'm giving you more than one access to be able to go and see that this is something he actually said. From Rutgers as well. You know, he stated on Saturday, January 23rd of 2016, he could shoot someone and not lose voters. And then we've got it from the Huffington Post. Or, I'm sorry, The Hill. We've got it from The Hill. And he states, I could shoot people on the streets and not lose support. And they have a video stating this. What more do you need? There's not a puppet there. This is something that he actually said. And the final link for you to go to, one of my favorites, is NPR. And they said the same thing. These are all the headlines. I could shoot somebody and I would not lose any voters. So think about that. You know, one of the things that a family member told me is when you have one finger pointed, you always have 3 fingers pointed back at you. So you need to check yourself before you spew information, especially in today's day and age with the internet, because it can and will be found. So that being said, I'm going to let you go. I'm so glad if you made it through. I'm sorry. I know it took a little bit longer. Again, we'll probably cut it down. Maybe we'll do it in 3 sections. So you have about the Irish and about the taxes, because I know this is a lot of information to digest, and also about what Trump has said and the freedom of speech and who should it protect. Because remember, it goes both ways. And I'm going to give one final plug. You know, I'm going to give one final plug to the Irish Stand. I'm going to give them a plug tomorrow. If you're in New York City and you can make it to the Riverside Church on Friday, on St. Patrick's Day from 7:30 to 10, please do so. Please, even if it's just for the experience, just see what they have to say. And, you know, remember, we're all immigrants unless we were born here. So, or Native American, we're all immigrants. So the reality is support the people who you know are fighting for their civil liberties, for a voice, because it may not be you right now, and it may not be a family member of yours right now, but it may very well be in the future if things continue to go the way that they're going. So, with that being said, I'm going to say good night and good luck, and I'll catch you tomorrow on the next podcast. And thank you for joining me. I hope that you will be joining me a little more in the future. And I'll make sure that I have at least 3 stories a day for you so that you can go and do some research. I know it's a lot to digest, but you have to be educated. It's important, because education is going to free your mind and you're not going to have those shackles anymore. So, and that's all I got. So the answer is 42. Don't forget your towel. And catch you on the flip side. Thanks for joining me.